Is this video completely predictable of me? Yes, it is. Do I care? I'm posting it, so probably not. Hopefully you don't care either. Hopefully. Hello and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're doing well. Yes, this is the great start. The next video of the alphabetical order series is here. It hasn't been that long since the last one, I think. I don't actually know as I'm recording this, but I'm just gonna go with it. It hasn't been that long. Before I even started posting videos of this series, I started listing down a bunch of characters before I got started, so I knew kind of the general idea of how the series would go. This was the first character I picked. He was always meant to be the letter G. This is Gay Fullbuster from Fairy Tail for those unaware. And if you know me even a little bit, this is probably not a surprise to you. I have liked this character since I was about 14? That sounds about right. I don't remember exactly how old I was when I first started watching Fairy Tail, but he was always my favorite, and he'll probably always be my favorite. So I knew he needed to be in the series. And for proof of how obvious my love for this character is, my sister has me in her contacts as Gray's dad. So there's that little piece of information that was absolutely necessary to tell all of you. And when I did the letter E, a lot of people were wondering why I didn't draw Urza, because she's another character from Fairy Tail that I really like. Blame Gray, because I also did Freed for the letter F, and I knew I needed to draw Gray for the letter G. It just didn't feel right to not do that, and I didn't want 3 Fairy Tail characters in a row. So as much as it pained me to not draw Urza for the letter E, this is why. So he's the reason. Blame him. And I know that Fairy Tail is very much far from perfect. I am probably Fairy Tail's biggest fan and biggest critic. I mentioned the writing of the last story arc and a certain character many times on my channel, who may be getting a video soon. What? I didn't say anything. But even though the writing at times is a little iffy and it's far less from perfect and kind of predictable at times, I still just adore this series. I'll always love it for what it is. It just has this certain charm to it that I really like, and honestly at this point I'm way too emotionally invested in the characters to ever not love the series, so I'm kind of stuck with it for the rest of my life whether I like it or not. You know how sometimes a series just does that to you. But yeah, I wanted as little repeating franchises as possible in this series, and I think this is the first repeating one. I knew for a fact that there would be some repeating series in this series. I knew there would be a couple of repeating series, but I wanted to limit that as little as possible, and I can say, for those of you who are not interested in Fairy Tail, don't worry, the next character is not for Fairy Tail, and there won't be another Fairy Tail character for quite a while, and I'm only planning on having one more, so there you go. And when I was making this drawing, I got off to a really rough start. I was kind of struggling for the first, say 2 hours, around there, maybe a little less. I was really struggling with that. First off, funnily enough, I can't draw Gray. I never have been able to draw him in a way that I like, and he's my favorite character, and it's a problem. And I can't really put my finger on why I had such a hard time drawing him, not only in this drawing, but just for the past, 6 or 7 years of watching Fairy Tail. I could never do it. I don't know why. Normally with characters like him, his type of character, in terms of both looks and personality, tended to be my favorite characters in a series, and I don't normally have as much of an issue drawing them, so I don't know what the issue is. I do know that a part of it is absolutely the hair, because the hair is just so far from what I typically do. I like to draw a lot of soft, flowy hair, I guess, and his hair is not that. It's super anime, spiky, well, that's how, I was gonna say how do you describe it, but that's how you describe it. It's not what I draw. So I would look up many references, mostly from my Fairy Tail art books, and by the way, another reason I had a rough start, I shared this a little bit on Instagram. I had a really hard time finding reference pictures. I wanted to draw him in this outfit. He is one of very few characters in Fairy Tail that has constantly changing clothes, which as a viewer, I appreciate. It's a little bit of a fresh look every now and again, and I enjoy watching that. But then as an artist who wants to draw him, it makes it hard to pick what clothes I want to draw him in. And I decided on this one mostly because when I used to draw a lot of fairy tale constantly, this is one of 2 outfits that I would typically draw him in, and this is just the one I felt like drawing when I went to make this video, which might have been a mistake. I was able to find references from, like, I guess, like, bust shots, like the chest up, but I couldn't find any full body things. I couldn't find any full body pictures on the internet, so I literally ended up watching an episode of Fairy Tail, screenshotted a bunch of stuff on my laptop, and it was a rough time. So, you know, I'm drawing a character that I can't really draw that well, like, ever at all, and I can't find references for said character, so we're off to a great start. Also, by the way, when I compiled a picture of, like, different reference photos of, like, different full body pictures and different angles of the outfit and everything, when I saved the file as a PNG, I accidentally typed it as gay instead of gray. And that has nothing to do with this video, and it'll never come up again, but it was just important to me that you knew that. And another reason that this drawing was a little bit of hell to get through when I first started doing it, I had a pretty hard time drawing the pose. Normally when I make videos that I am drawing in, I always make a thumbnail of the drawing before filming, just so I have a general idea of how the piece is going to look and I don't feel completely lost when I start filming the video. And that was true this time. I made thumbnails before filming, as always. But then as I was making the final thing, even though I was following the thumbnail I made, I found I didn't like it as much once I started actually making the finished illustration, which was an issue. I believe I was on the final sketch layer when I decided I didn't really like it a whole lot and I wanted to make some changes. I kept the general vibe of the original thumbnail, but I did make some changes. I ended up changing the arm, the one that's... I have to use all 2 of my brain cells for this. Our left, it would be his right. That arm. Instead of having that arm just behind him holding himself up, I ended up resting it on a pile of ice that's just there. And then I also changed the angle of the legs. Originally, they were both just, how would you describe that? That, like, bench pose, knees up, feet on ground, sitting pose. That thing. I changed it from that to having the legs be slightly crossed, not exactly like crisscross applesauce style, but a little bit. It was generally the same of what the original thumbnail was like, but I think that this pose just is a little bit more natural, and I think it definitely improved the drawing. I wish I had worked that out before the thumbnail phase though, because in this one he's interacting with the ice a little bit more. I knew I wanted to include the ice. For the uninitiated, Gray is a wizard who uses ice magic, and so I knew I wanted to incorporate the letter as being made of ice, because that's a theme for all of these drawings for anyone new. Hi. Nice to meet you. And since I was going to have the letter G made out of ice, I wanted to include more ice around him, but I wasn't planning on having it be as, I guess interactive would be the right word for that. And so, like, one issue that I came across while drawing this, the arm that's resting on ice, it doesn't exactly look that way to me. Like, I think it's passable, but since it was more of a last minute decision, there wasn't a whole lot of planning that went into it, so it kind of just, it looks like his arm is up and the ice is just kind of there. It doesn't exactly look like he's resting his arm on it, if that makes any sense. Also, another thing that isn't exactly relevant to the drawing, but it's very important for me that you know that, I very quickly realized that the pose that I drew him in, like, if you just look at his face and then the arm that's, like, being held up, it is literally the same pose as the "is this a pigeon" meme, so I realized that very early on, and that was very much on my mind the entire time I was drawing this. So if I have to think about that, then so do you. But after I was able to push through the first hour or so, did I say 2 hours? Maybe it was 2 hours. I don't keep track of time. After I pushed through the sketching phase, after that it was just pretty regular art struggles that every artist has now and again. Some of which were the hands in the drawing and the shoes from this specific angle. Which, fun fact, I actually ended up using my own shoes and hand as references. Not for the hand that's being held up, but for the hand that's, like, dangling down. I probably should have used a reference for both hands now that I'm thinking about it, but think about that, so we're just gonna brush over that. I just took reference pictures of my shoes. I just held up my shoes in the angles that I needed them to be at, took some pictures, took a picture of my hand, and there we go. What do you know? When you use references, it's actually helpful. It's almost as if I should follow my own advice when I tell everybody to use references. Another issue I have that I think is a typical art struggle, but it's something that I personally struggle with a lot in my art, is foreshortening, at least to like this extent, which isn't a big extent, but I feel like I'm much better at foreshortening when it's more extreme angles, more specifically like a super high bird's eye view type of angle, or a hand being extended straight out in front of them, or like mostly straight out in front of them, but maybe it's at like a bit of a higher or lower angle. Stuff like that I'm a lot better at drawing, but if you look at his legs in this drawing, they're foreshortened, but only a little bit. And that's what I struggle with the most, because I don't know if it looked this way to you guys, but to me, it doesn't really read as being slightly foreshortened. It reads mostly as just the legs are proportionally inaccurate. Like, I think the thigh, one of the thighs at least, I think it looks just a little bit too short, but then if I were to make it any longer, it wouldn't look the way I needed it to look for the pose to work, but then it's like I couldn't make it look foreshortened in a way that the pose would work, so I don't know. It was a struggle. If anybody has any advice for that, let me know. I am struggling. Please help. Another thing that I struggled with a little bit in this drawing was the ice. I haven't drawn ice like ever, so this was definitely a first time for me. The first struggle I ran into was just like the structure of it, I guess. Ice, especially the way that it's portrayed in, I guess, not only fairy tale, but just in a lot of media. It's not like a perfect looking thing. It's very like rough, it's very textured, and it's like not what I would typically go for whenever I draw something. Whenever I was adding the chunks of ice, it was just my instinct to try and make it like smooth, but I had to really focus on making it like rough and pointy and like asymmetrical and just very not perfect is the best way that I can put it. I mentioned it here and there on my channel before, but to make something look a lot more natural, it has to look less perfect. I think another way I can explain it is like drawing backgrounds. Like, let's say you were drawing a background of like a busy street with like shops and everything on it. Most like cities and towns aren't like perfect, squeaky clean, everything looks nice. Like some buildings are a little bit of old, so maybe there's some like stains or scratches or something like that on the wall, or maybe there's some graffiti, maybe there's a little bit of litter. Don't litter, but maybe there's a little bit of litter on the floor and stuff like that. It would help to make that world look a lot more lived in, I guess. And so even though it's not perfect and some parts of it aren't exactly pretty, like the litter, it does make it look a lot more realistic and a lot more natural. And it's kind of the issue I was running with here. My instinct was to just make it like super smooth, super pretty, super nice, but it wouldn't look like ice if I did that, so I just had to keep reminding myself to do that, and it was very much a conscious effort to do that. I had to really focus in order to make it look like that, which I think it paid off. This is definitely my first time drawing ice, and for a first attempt, I think I did okay. I think I like it. Another thing that I ended up doing with the ice, I added this sort of gradient to it, which took a lot of time because I wanted to add the gradient to each individual chunk, so I had to make sure that I selected each piece, and then I added like a white gradient on the top, and then I added a darker blue gradient from the bottom, and it looks really nice. I think it definitely helps with that sort of magical ice feel, but my God, did it take a long ass time. If you are drawing ice, I would recommend doing something like this because it really gives it that nice final touch that I think it needed, but holy fuck. Only draw ice if you got a lot of time to kill. One thing that I will say about the ice that I don't super love, though, is that it looks almost like crystally, and I don't think that's super uncommon in a lot of like anime and manga and cartoons. I think ice a lot of the time does end up looking more crystally, so I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. It was just kind of an unexpected result of me trying to draw ice. Since it's not a super uncommon thing, I don't dislike it per se, but I would have also liked if I could make it look more like ice, but considering I've never made ice before, I don't know how to do that. I've said ice a lot in this video, and the word is starting to lose all meaning. One thing that I did try to do though with the ice is I wanted to avoid having shading that was too dark. So if you don't know about my drawing process, if you're interested, I made a walkthrough thing of how I make digital pieces. I'll link that in the iCard. But typically I do all of my shading on a multiply layer, and I have 4 different different shades of a single tone that I used to shade with. And when I was shading the ice, I forewent using Foregone. I didn't use the 2 darkest ones unless it was absolutely necessary. So like the ice chunks that are farthest in the back, I added the darker shading mostly on the bottom to help separate them from the ice chunks that were closer to the viewer, but I really didn't want to add those darker shades because I felt like that would just not make it look good. I don't know, I think I'm trying to say I don't think it would look like ice, but I'm not sure if that's actually the thought in my brain. But if you are an expert on drawing ice, let me know if that is accurate. Let me know if adding the darker shades would have actually been helpful. Overall, this drawing took me about 9-ish hours. I don't often keep track of the exact time it takes me to make a drawing, which I probably should. It's usually just when I put all of the footage into my drawing program to speed it up. This one ended up being at about 9 hours long. I was originally planning on this having be a much quicker piece because I was kind of running out of time to film this. Fun fact, I'm recording this audio the day that this video is supposed to go up. Let's see if it gets out on time. But I figured, like, you know, I love this character and I have since I was young, a young child. And so I just kind of wanted to do the drawing justice, especially since he's a character that I've struggled drawing with every single time I've drawn him in the past. Instead of just rushing through it, I decided to take my time and really... Oh my goodness, I do not care, Windows computer, get out of here. I really wanted to try and do the character justice, and I really wanted to put a lot of effort into it. I wanted to take the time to try and solve the problems I was having while I was making it, and that doesn't always happen. Sometimes whenever I'm filming a video, especially when I'm on a time crunch, I know I can do better when it comes to a drawing, but I typically don't, because I know I have to get the video out at a certain time, so I just rush through it. Sometimes it looks okay, sometimes it's eh. But for this one, I'm really glad that I ended up taking the time to make it the best that I could make it, which I definitely think I did here. It's not perfect, but I am happy with the end result, which I'm happy I was able to finally make a drawing of him that I like. Like, holy fuck. I found often that with Fairy Tail, I kind of go through phases of who is currently my favorite character, or like characters. Like sometimes I'll really like Gray, and then sometimes I'll really like the Thunder Legion, and then maybe I'll like characters from Sabretooth, or maybe I'll like more of the minor characters in the guild. But I always consider Gray to be like my forever favorite, I guess is the best way to put that. Even if he isn't a character that I think about as much as I used to, or a character that I draw as much as I used to. Whenever I think of Fairy Tail, he's typically the first character to pop into mind, just because from the moment I watched it, I really liked him. And then I always excited to see where his character was going, which I might have been a little bit disappointed of by the end of the show, but I was really excited to see where his character was always going. Like I said, characters like him are typically my favorite, so it wasn't really a shock that he ended up being my favorite, but he's always a character that I end up coming back to whenever I think about characters that I like in Fairy Tail. I'll probably always consider him to be my favorite. So for those of you who wanted more Fairy Tail content from me, here you go. And for those of you who are still wanting more Fairy Tail content from me after this video is uploaded, stay tuned. This month I may or may not have plans to release a video that has been a video I suggested many years ago, and a video that people still ask me about, if you know what I mean. If you're a newer viewer, you're probably very confused, but stay tuned for that. And for those of you who don't want Fairy Tail content, that is also cool. And if you are someone who thinks that Fairy Tail is trash, yeah, it can definitely be trash sometimes, not gonna lie, but regardless of your opinions on the series, I hope you like this drawing. Let me know your thoughts. This video needs to go up, and also it is about to start thundering so hard, so I'm going to end this video now. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this drawing. Let me know your thoughts on a Fairy Tail, if you love it or hate it. Let me know what characters you like that start with the letter G. If you guessed this right, which all of you probably did. Also, feel free to leave your guesses for who I'm going to be drawing for the letter H. I'll try to get that out soon, so this series doesn't go on another like 8-month hiatus like it did that one time. And if you are new here, hello, my name is Oliver. I hope you didn't mind me rambling about my favorite character and being a nerd. And if you are new here, consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. I make a video every single Wednesday and additional bonus videos whenever I can. I love sharing my art with you. If you want to see more original content from me, I make videos every single month about my original characters, and I draw them a lot on my channel. It's a fun time, so I'd appreciate it if you could check those out. And if you want to see more from me, you can follow follow me on social media, which will be on screen now and linked in the description box below. I would suggest following me most on Twitter and Instagram, but whatever you can do or want to do, you cannot follow me. I can't force you. And there will be some videos from me on screen now and linked in the iCard for you to check out if you want. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.